Hi guys, how are you doing? Today we'll be talking to you about FUGAZ. Have you ever heard of the acronym called FUGAZ? Basically, it represents the 5 largest banks in Nigeria. So we're looking at FBN Holdings, we're looking at UBA, we're looking at GTB, Access Bank, and Zenith Bank, hence FUGAZ. Today we'll be crunching the numbers. Now let's look at the top line number. We're looking at gross earnings. Gross earnings covers the top line numbers for the banks. So you're looking at things like loans, the interest on loans, you're looking at interest income amongst others. This is basically how the banks make their money, the primary way that is they make their money. So leaving that gross earnings chart, surprisingly, guess who is topping that chart? It's actually Access Bank. Access Bank is topping your gross earnings with 396 billion naira. This is just for the first half of the year. A close second is Zenith Bank at 346 billion, followed by UBA, amongst others. So just shows you how the gross earnings are performing for that period. The next one is the profit before tax. Now, surprisingly, although Access Bank was leading my chart with gross earnings, guess who came through for number 1 for profit before tax? Zenith Bank, 114 billion naira. If you take out the impact of tax, then we have what? Profit after tax. This is where the shareholders actually can now start benefiting from. The last line, that is the profit after the tax itself, after all the different expenses have been taken into account. Leading my chart here once again is Zenith Bank at 103 billion naira for the first half of this year. A not so distant second is my GTB. GTB is here at 94 billion, followed by others. Interestingly, we can see that Access Bank is sitting down here pretty in the 3rd spot, although it was leading the chart with a gross earnings income. Did you know that just not too long ago, FBN Capital used to be the number 3 bank in Nigeria, but now it's sitting down here at what? Number 4. Awesome. So we're looking here at profit after tax. Something else is very interesting here. Let me point it out to you. There's something called a gross profit margin. A gross profit margin basically looks at it in a point of percentage, because if you're looking at it just in terms of nominal numbers means raw numbers like 5 billion, 6 billion. But a gross margin percentage takes into account a percentage so we can compare like for like. When we did a gross profit margin, meaning you're taking your net profit divided by what? Your gross earnings. We're able to come up with a percentage. Guess who was leading the chart here? It was GTB. GTB was leading that chart by what? It is what? The gross profit margin for GTB is 41%, whereas that of Zenith Bank is approximately 30%. What this means is that GTB is actually able to do more with less. It is one of the most efficient banks in Nigeria. Fantastic numbers right there. Now, next thing here is earnings per share. Basically, earnings per share tracks profitability. You're seeing GTB leading, you're seeing it here, GTB and Zenith Bank pretty close at 3.3 earnings per share. That is very, very close. The next one here is interim dividend. What are dividend? Dividend is what the companies pay to shareholders after their profit after tax. So they can say that, you know what, we're going to give X amount as dividend to our shareholders. Now in Nigeria, the financial institutions usually pay dividend twice a year. Interim means the very first part, while the final dividend is the last dividend. It happens twice a year, right? So the interim dividend for now is 0.3, that is 30 kobo. Interestingly, did you know that for the past 3 years or so, GTB and Zenith Bank have been given the same amount of dividends to their shareholders, the same amount of dividends. Now we can see how Access Bank is pretty close, followed by UBA. For FBN Holdings, there's none of it for now. The next one is what? Your share price. And I'll be telling you about a little gist. As of the 4th of September 2020, the share price for Zenith Bank, 17 naira 40 kobo. For GTB, 26 naira 55 kobo. And then we're also seeing that the share price of Access Bank and UBA, the same thing, while FBN Holdings is sitting at 5 naira. Now, there's something called a dividend yield. A dividend yield basically measures the dividend as a percentage so that you can compare like for like, right? You can compare the dividend yield of Zenith to that of GTB, to that of Nestle, and to any other player in the market. Now, if you look at this kind of chart, right, remember that in order to calculate dividend yield, you have the dividend there that is right there on top, right? And then you also have the share price underneath. Now, because Zenith Bank and GTB have the same dividend, Zenith Bank's share price is lower than that of GTB. So because of that, you'll be seeing that Zenith Bank holders will actually have a higher dividend yield, right? Whereas those that are with GTB will have a lower dividend yield. So although they are paying the same amount of dividend, because their share price differs, their dividend yield will also differ, right? Don't worry, you can go on our Edtech platform, www.themoneyafrica.com. We have a whole course talking about dividends, what it means and how to calculate it. But I'm going somewhere. Please stay with me. These are some of the highest dividend paying companies in Nigeria, right? And the next one we have is the PE ratio. So you're thinking about PE. It probably sounds like something scientific, like you're talking about the chemical state in your body. All right, I'm exaggerating. Basically, a PE ratio, the aim of a PE ratio is that it measures what investors are willing to pay for the past and future earnings, right? Basically, how the investors perceive that share, what they are willing to pay, what they're anticipating is going to happen in the future. Now, going by these numbers, you can see that investors in GTB are willing to pay more. That is, they're willing to pay what they are paying for its share because they're expecting what? More in terms of future earnings amongst others compared to that of Zenith that is at 5.2x. So the PE ratio for GTB is 7.99x, whereas the PE ratio for Zenith Bank is 5.2x. But it gets interesting. Did you know that a lot of analysts always say that Nigerian banks, in terms of their numbers, and I'm talking about PE ratio and how the market is pricing them, is that they are underpriced. Let me give you a quick comparison. Did you know that for the S&P 500, the index, did you know that the PE ratio for that on average, S&P 500 average PE ratio is actually 15? But you can look at here, these are some of the largest financial institutions in Nigeria with PE ratio of about 7.99 and 5.2x. So I guess the market will have to decide if it's actually underpriced or not. But guys, I hope you found this insightful. I hope you learned something new. Dividend yield, PE ratio, gross profit margin. There's a whole lot packed into this video in order to learn more and to simplify it and able to see how the rest of the market is performing. I'm talking about Nestle. I'm talking about what? All the different shares. You can join our platform, www.themoneyafrica.com. We do not just only teach you, we also explain it and bring it to you in layman terms. We can't wait to have you join us. Come into the comment section. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you thought about it. Tag your friends and let's share it. Thank you so much and good day. Bye.